Hey everyone, hello and welcome to the second day of the Alexa Skills Camp. I know I've been super excited for the second day, and I'm super happy that a lot of you have turned up for the second day of the camp as well. But yes, I think we'll start in a while. We'll just give a couple of minutes, a few minutes before everyone starts to join in. And till that, I think we'll just answer a few questions that questions have been coming in. Um, but yeah, so Tiwari ji asks, he found an issue with CLI config does not exist. So Tiwari ji, if you are not getting that if you are getting that issue, what you should do is type in ask configure, and it takes you through that process where you need to sign into your portal, and that will solve your issue. So just try that. Yep, and just in case you guys have not joined our Slack channel, please do. The link is alexa.design/India Slack invite. Um, Dipanshu Jain asks, hello sir, my skill has 1500 plus customer in US, but I'm an Indian developer, will it generate revenue? Good question, Dipanshu. We do have a program called as Alexa Developer Rewards, which does give money to Indian developers for their skill, but that is only for skills in the Indian locale. So what you can do is, and I'm going to be talking about that today. We'll be talking about how to localize your skill. So maybe you can take that knowledge, build it in there, build it for the India locale and publish it, and then maybe you can earn that money and maybe give me a cut of that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Right. If you are joining in, just say hi on the chat. That just helps us put a name to your face and people who are watching us. So that really helps us. Just say hi. Always good to have more people joining the community and listening into us. Himanshu Marwa is here. Sai Tejas is here. Abhinav username is unavailable is here. Krishna Tandon. Hey everyone. Shashank the King says Raftar by Badshah. Yes, that was the last song yesterday, right? I really missed that. Ashish is here. Hey Ashish. Sanjula Mathur is here. Duck Puppy is here. That's a nice name. Anupam Haldkar is here. Manish is here. Hey everyone. A lot of people are in here, but of course you're typing in so fast, and that's really good. But I cannot take read out everyone's name so fast. But maybe I can try. Lokesh Sukhwal is here. Rishabh Anand is here. Hello from Portugal. Hello. Oh, Nitin Sama says my skill got 5k customers. I got a 6k Amazon voucher and also got 75% off on the course. But I'm not sure if I should take the course. Trust me, Nitin, I think you should take the course. I think you should take the course. It's a really good course. You should give that certification exam. Um, that is kind of like a uh, good way to show your Alexa cred. I've written a blog post about how that exam works, which you can see on my website, which is pkarthik.in. You can just go in there, and I've written an article about. I think I've written an article about that. Yeah, about the Alexa Skill Builder exam, and I think I got some 919 out of 1000. And do give this exam and see if you can beat the score. I know a few people who have beaten the score, so that is definitely super cool. Uh, yeah, right. So Sohini Patnaik asks, is there a special way through which we can apply for the Amazon Alexa team? I mean, recruitment. I don't know a special way, but you can just go to amazon.jobs, and that is the link where you can kind of go and apply to the job. That would be the right way. Or maybe you can reach out to one of us on LinkedIn, and if you feel that you are a good fit, maybe we can refer you to the hiring manager to a job that you think is good, right? How can I prepare for the exam, Nitin? I've written all on the blog post, but there are a couple of good resources online which should help you out. Um, it's the AWS Alexa certification, Karthik. Um, and PSR 29, no, we are not building this in Python, we are building this in Node.js. Um, Today's session is going to be entirely hands-on, guys. There is no slides. I promise there are no slides at all today, except for one image, and just one image, no slides at all. It's going to be entirely code. So a lot of people yesterday were asking, is this going to be a hands-on session? Am I just going to be talking? Good news, guys. I'm not going to be talking, right? Just a couple of minutes before we get started. Hey to everyone who's just joined. Um, right. I just shared a picture of my network, my setup here. This is my computer for those who can see it. This is where the camera is, and that's where I'm looking into. And on the right is my laptop here, my work laptop from where I sometimes monitor just to make sure that everything is working fine, and stuff like that. Um, Sakshi says you haven't attended yesterday's lecture. Is it good to go? Kind of, yeah. We do have the videos available as well. You're not missing too much, but yeah, if you, I will be sharing that link with everyone, so you can just look into that and go into the videos, check out the video, and yeah, get started with that. And okay, so it's 6 o'clock. I think we can get started. I've got my bowl of hot cocoa milk here. So let's get started. We are going to code with some really good cocoa milk. So let's get started. Yeah. Now, I just had a couple of call outs to make before we get started. So yesterday, a lot of you joined the stream, and you also joined our Slack channel, by the way, which is now at 4,000 plus developers. So really cool. Thanks all of you for joining. We saw a couple of questions that kept on coming, so I thought I'd just address that up front. Are you able to see this on the screen though? Yep, you are able to see that, right? Yeah, so the questions were, do I need to create an AWS account and an Alexa developer account with the same email ID? The answer is no, you don't need to use it with the same email ID. It could be two different email IDs. That's perfectly fine. Does not matter at all. Question number 2, a lot of you were having an issue with installing the Ask CLI tool because of some error or the other, right? Maybe it was an office laptop that you were trying it out on, and maybe it was not getting installed, or maybe you did not have the sufficient permissions, or maybe you did not have the required software. I kind of have to apologize to you guys here because I made a small mistake while trying to teach you how to do the Ask CLI. The Ask CLI is a really super tool, right? And when you get it installed with all the proper permissions and whatever links I have given you, follow that, it gets installed. But sometimes it is possible that you may run into some issues. And whenever you run into some issues, we appreciate you putting that up on Slack, and we can help you out with that. And partially I asked you all to install it, so you guys tried it out. But what I'm going to do is for this entire workshop, I'm not going to be using Ask CLI. I'm just going to make that one small change. Don't worry at all about the code. The code is going to work the same, just like Ask CLI. We are going to use something called as Alexa hosted, because yesterday I got a lot of feedback from all of you. Which was hey, I don't have an AWS account, I don't have credit card, and B, the CLI tool doesn't work for me. So I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to get that figured out on this stream today. Do bring those questions onto the Slack channel. We will get them sorted out. No issues at all about that. In fact, I've been spending some time today making sure that this is working perfectly fine. everyone's answers are being answered, so I will make sure that the answers are answered. But yeah, apart from that, we are going to be using a different tool, so don't worry about this entire skills seminar. Just follow whatever I will be doing. You can follow along without having to install any of those things. You'll just need a browser, and we'll start from scratch today. Some of you were able to install Ask CLI, and it was nothing like what I showed on the screen. And this was again a small mistake that I made, where the Ask CLI just had a new version released just a day before. I just think a couple of days back, and we kind of ran into this issue where you downloaded the new feature, the new tool, whereas I had the outdated one, right? And that was the reason why it was not the same. Basically, when you type Ask CLI now, you get an option where you can choose Alexa hosted or a cloud formation template, or I guess a Lambda function. So these were the three options, but for me, it was totally showing some different options, right? So no need to worry about that. Just that it's I was using a previous version and you are using a latest version. So that's the thing. For this summer skills camp, people ask, do I absolutely need an AWS account? Not really. So to build certain parts of the skill, you're not going to need AWS account at all. But if possible, try and get an AWS account, because I think on the 4th day, that is on Thursday, we are planning to integrate something called as Game On SDK. And Game On SDK requires an AWS account. So without that, we may not be able to do that. Try and see if you can use a friend's credit card or a debit card. And at the end of the entire workshop, you can delete all the resources you made, and maybe remove the card. So that's one way maybe you can handle that. A lot of you are asking for the link to the previous seminar. That is here. You can go to twitch.tv/videos, or you can go to this link and you can find the Alexa Skills Summer Camp. Okay, just a couple of other things to talk about. We have two really good moderators with us, Jeff Nunn and Jeff Blankenberg, and they are pretty active on Twitch as well. If you want to learn some more advanced stuff, I know me, Jeff, and Jeff, all of us stream on our personal channels, and that is our link, twitch.tv/pkarthikar/jbnunn/Jeff Blankenberg. So do give them a follow. If you want to learn some more advanced stuff, hit them up, hit their usernames, and go and follow their accounts as well, so that you get notified when we are doing some more advanced stuff with Alexa. And this is something that I wanted to give a general call out about. And this was basically, about how you might be frustrated when your code is not working. Guys, we are going to be doing a lot of coding today, right? And you might be kind of running into issues with code. Don't worry at all if your code doesn't work. We've got a Slack community which will always help you out with your code. So just go in there and post in your responses, questions, right? Don't be worried about if it's not working at this moment. Maybe we'll figure it out, and maybe you will learn, and maybe we will learn in that entire process. Be a bit patient and kind as well. That's very important. We saw a couple of comments yesterday on the chat which should not have been made. I hate to say that we have moderators who have the power to ban you guys, and we don't really want to do that. We just want this stream to be fun. We are all having fun here. So just make sure you're being kind and just enjoying this entire thing. And last but not the least, join the Slack channel. Yeah, alexa.design/India Slack invite. That's the link. And wow, cool, 300 of you joining us today. Make sure you're saying hi in the chat so that we know who you are, and asking any questions. But please do understand that there's going to be a lot of questions here, and we just got like 4 or 5 people helping out in the chat. So maybe we not be able to get to all the questions. The Slack is the right way to get answers. All right, I've had my sip of coffee. Let's get started. Yeah. So yesterday I started with this skill. We deployed a skill. It was not. It was something kind of working, but at the end of the day, we asked all of you to go and create it. via the CLI, we are going to start fresh, guys. Okay, we are going to start fresh. We'll just make sure that I'll make sure that we are talking about how our CLI works, and I'll explain to you how that works. But today we are going to start fresh from scratch on building the skill again, right? In fact, let me start my lights. Computer, switch on the bulb.
Okay.
There we go. The bulb is on now. So let's get started. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go inside my console, and inside my console I'm going to create a new skill. Now this skill is what I'm going to call as riddle me today, and by default the language that I'm going to choose is English India. Now we've got a lot of languages. I think we support somewhere around 15 languages, but we are going to go start with English IN because that is what Alexa customers in India are going to be using, right? You can add more languages later on, and it is written in here that more languages can be added to your skill. So don't worry about that. For the time being, we're just going to add English. Now, choose a model to add to your skill. Now, what is this model? The model is the front end for your skill. It basically dictates how your skill is going to behave when a user says something. So when a user says something to your skill, you can define in the model what should happen, right? Where should it go? So that's what we do with choosing with the model, right? Now I'm going to choose custom, but there are some other models that we also have. We have flash briefing, we have smart home, we have videos. Flash briefing is for news, smart home is for turning on the lights, right? If you have a smart home device, just like I just said, turn on the bulb. In fact, I believe I might have a, not sure where did that go. I think I have I have this one of these cool things called as the blink lights, which I can maybe show you some other time. But this is something which is a smart home device, almost like a USB, which I can control through Alexa as well. Now, this is where I'm going to choose a method to host your skills backend resource. Now, we talked a bit about the front end, what the skill does in the front end, right? Whatever the user says, go to that skill, goes to that intent, okay? Now, what happens is in the backend is where you're going to write your logic. Maybe your database queries, your responses are going to come in from here, your leaderboard query, or whatever logic that you want to do, you'll be doing that in the backend, right? So think of this as like a mobile app. In the mobile app, the front end is your UX, the UI that you see. That's the same thing in the skill, right? You have the customs. Then you have Alexa hosted, so the back end, which is where the logic is going to be written, your API is going to be written, stuff like that. So what method are we going to use today? So yesterday we tried with Ask CLI, but that didn't work out for us. So we are going to go with Alexa hosted Node.js, right? So I'm just going to repeat what we did here on this page. We created a skill name, riddle me today. We created a default language, English IN. We chose the model to add to the skill, which is custom, and we chose Alexa hosted as an option. Now, what is Alexa hosted? So Alexa hosted is a offering from Amazon itself, where we kind of give you a AWS Lambda endpoint, kind of like a shared hosting that you can talk about, but it's a serverless hosting, right? You will gain access to an AWS Lambda endpoint. You have 5 GB of media storage and 15 GB of monthly data transfer. So this should be perfectly fine. And the reason why we are doing this, and in fact, I made a meme as well, and I do this a lot of times. I kind of do a lot of workshops, and whenever I do workshops, one of the things that I've learned is to not try and use Ask CLI for workshops, because we kind of run into issues. So there's the meme about using Ask CLI for workshops and using Alexa hosted for workshops, right? So that is a meme that I made today. So I thought I can communicate this in a better way. Ask CLI is cool, by the way. You should definitely use it when you are doing it for your personal projects or for bigger projects. But when you are trying to teach a workshop like this, maybe that's not the best tool to use. right? But yeah. Now, people are asking what is Lambda? So Lambda is like the endpoint where our backend code is going to be there. It's serverless, which means there is no server which is running all the time, like in traditional servers. It's just, it's a serverless endpoint where there's no server and just a computing resource is allocated to your endpoint whenever it is called. So you get only billed whenever your skill actually has a user talking to it and the endpoint is hit. So that is what serverless means. I'm going to choose all these things and then click on create skill. On the next page, it asks for choosing a template to add to your skill. I'm going to go with hello world skill. And you might notice that in the previous step, there was also an option to use Python as well for the backend, which is perfectly fine. You can use Python. Just that for this workshop, I'm not going to be writing in Python code. But don't worry about it. You can always try it out with Python as well. You can build all of those code. If you're familiar with Python, you can definitely go and try that out with Python. And we have got a lot of code samples to help you out with that. All right, this is going to take a couple of minutes, I guess. Yeah, so the skill name was Riddle Me Today. And if you want, you can use the same name, or maybe you can set up your own name. And yeah, that should be fine. You can put in any name. There are certain conditions on what should be your invocation name, and that's all available on the link that I'll show in your while. But yeah. Hey, I think I saw Omkar Pathak here as well. Omkar is also from the Alexa team. Say hi to Omkar. Right. Okay, everyone, let's get started. So this is my skill dashboard. Okay, we've created a skill. This is my skill dashboard. The very first thing is, how do I open my skill? To open my skill, I need to have an invocation name. And my invocation name looks like this. Right now, my skills invocation name is change me. So I need to change it to something else. But there are certain things about invocation name requirements in here, which you can follow. Now, what I'm going to do here is just going to call it as Riddle Me Today. So that is the name of that is my invocation name. A user can say something like, Alexa, open Riddle Me Today, and stuff like that. Okay, let's get started. Now, the next is intents, right? So remember yesterday, and we talked about this. We had a utterance here, which looks something like this, right? Where I could say something like, Alexa, ask Riddle Me Today for riddle, right? And this is what we called as an utterance. Okay, so this is also a way how you can interact with skill. You can directly say, Alexa, ask Riddle Me Today for riddles, right? You don't have to say open Riddle Me Today and then say give me today's riddle, right? You can directly say ask Riddle Me Today for riddle. This is what we call as one-shot invocation, and that's what we are doing here. And the utterances, are basically how people can ask for riddles in different way. Right now, you see for riddle there. You can also see for today's riddle. You can also see what is the riddle today. Give me today's riddle, right? So basically, what happens is people kind of ask for the same thing in a different way. And this is the first learning that I'm going to talk about is you kind of take all of them together and you bucket them into something called as an intent. So say for example, when someone says for riddle, what is the riddle? Today's riddle. That means people are asking for the user is asking for the riddle today, right? What you can do is classify all of them as a riddle intent. So basically this means you're training Alexa to understand that, hey, if a user says all these things or something similar to these things, riddle intent is where they need to go, right? So, and that's what is shown up here in the dashboard as well in the intents. So intents is what I would classify as what the user wants to do, and utterances is what the user says to get there, right? So I'm going to change my intent name here. I'm going to change this intent name to riddle intent, R capital, I capital. That is a name policy that I'm following. Okay, got it. So this is riddle intent, and what can the user say to invoke this riddle intent? So how about you guys help me out? How about you folks help me out? How about you tell me what are the utterances that I can add here? I can say, give me today's riddle. What is today's riddle? Tell me a riddle. What else? What else can we add in here? Did I have something in from here? Give me today's riddle. What is the riddle today? What about a riddle? Riddle me something, bring a riddle. Yeah, so the point is I need to train Alexa to understand that in certain way, right? So once I have added as many utterances as possible, I'm going to save this model. So let's just save this model and then build the model. So this, like I said, is the interaction model. Interaction model is how the front end of your skill works. Now what happens is whenever someone says, Alexa, open riddle me today and tell me a riddle, we are going to get a notification. Our backend is going to get a notification saying that, hey, this user, they asked for riddle intent. So this is kind of like training Alexa to understand that, hey, if someone says something like this, go to this. As simple as that. Okay, and let's see how we can handle this. So once you build the model, what's going to happen is you are going to get a notification here, and I'm not sure if you guys are able to see this. I'm not sure if that is translating in there, but you will see a small pop-up on the right hand side, which will be something like which will say that your full build was successful. And once you get that notification, you can think of the next step. Okay, so that's how we build a model. Yeah. Okay, can you zoom in a bit? Let me see if I can zoom in a bit. I hope this is fine. Okay, right. Okay, so now that we are done with this, our front end model is now ready. Let's go to the back end. So we talked about the front end, the UI is done, the UX is done, right? Let's take care of the back end logic, right? So when someone says, ask riddle me today to give me a riddle, we need to come to riddle intent, right? So I'll click on the code option here. And this is the best part about using Alexa hosted. And the reason why we are using this is because we don't need to have a code editor. All of this is inbuilt in here itself, right? All the code is in here. You don't need to have a different AWS Lambda account where you'll be deploying the code. You don't need to use the Ask CLI, which again is great, but for my training purposes, I'm not going to be using this for this entire camp. Okay, so this is our backend code, which gets deployed onto a Lambda endpoint, which is your serverless endpoint. And what we are going to do here is we're going to look at this code. Now this code is Node.js. Don't worry if you don't understand Node.js, that's perfectly fine. Even I'm not an expert with Node.js. I primarily work with Python, and I've worked with PHP and Java and a lot of different languages, right? So Node.js is not like my primary language as well. But it's perfectly fine if you can just understand what we are doing in here. Okay, you just need to understand what's happening in here, and you can try and do that in your language. Okay, so now what we are going to do in here is we already had an intent here. I'm just going to open up my build tab. We already had an intent here called as hello world intent, which we renamed to riddle intent. So if you look in here, you will find on line number 18, there is a hello world intent handler. So I'm just going to change that to riddle intent handler. Okay, we are going to call this as the riddle intent handler. That's the variable that is going to handle all the calls to the riddle intent handler. So anytime someone calls the riddle intent, it's going to go inside the riddle intent handler. But now on line number 19, and we are using something called as Ask SDK, which is basically the SDK, the software development kit that the Alexa team has created so that you can write the code directly. Okay, write some methods directly, use them directly rather than writing JSON parsing code. Okay. Um, so here on line number 19, there is a function called as can handle, and we define here what type of request can this function handle. And here, if you see, this can handle a function where the request type is intent request and the intent name is hello world intent, right? But now if you notice, we don't have a hello world intent. We are going to change this hello world intent to riddle intent, right? Let's just change it to riddle intent. That makes sense. Now once we are done with that, what we are going to do is we are going to give a response here. Okay, we are going to say something like here is the riddle for today. Okay, here is the riddle for today, and you're going to get a response here. Okay, so this is the handle function. So what's going to happen is if first of all, when a user says something like ask riddle me today for riddles, it's going to come to riddle intent handler. It will see that it can handle it, and then it will, if it can handle it, it will go inside the handle function. As simple as that. The name just suggests what these functions do. Can handle checks if it can handle it, handle actually handles it. So here I have speak output, and in the speak output I have updated the text to here is the riddle for today, and return handler input dot response builder dot speak dot get response. Okay, now I know some of these terms are really new, and I'll explain to you what these terms do, but we'll get to that in a while. So that is something that we have done here. Last but not the least, if we scroll down a bit here, you will notice that there is a hello world intent handler at the bottom as well. So I'm just going to remove that and change it to riddle intent handler. Now this method that you see here is called as the skill builder method, and this is an entry point for your backend. So the front end first will understand what intent the user asked for. So the user asked for riddle intent, so it's going to call this function, and this function is going to take care of where it should go. It should go to riddle intent handler. Okay, perfectly fine. So it's going to go inside riddle intent handler, and then the riddle intent handler will do its processing and give out the response, right? So that's all you need to know for now. I'm just going to click on save here and going to click on deploy. Okay, just going to save and deploy this code. Okay, Anand Kumar is here. Kumar Anand is also here. He's also from the Alexa team. Welcome to the stream, Kumar. Okay, are there any other questions at this point? But I think there are, whatever questions we have are being answered, I hope. If not, like I said, the Slack should be a correct way to give it. Put in your answers. But yeah, I think so far looks like it's good so far. Okay, perfect. Now I've deployed the code. Now once I have deployed the code, I need to test it out, and like I said, you can test it out either in your device if you have the same account. So you need to have the same account on your device and the same account on your developer portal. If it's the same account, you can test it out on your device. But now what we are going to do is we are going to test it out in the simulator. Now how do you test it out? So our skill name is riddle me today, and what we are looking to test is we are looking to test the riddle intent. Okay, so let's test it out. So I'm going to say ask riddle me today, and then take one of these utterances from here to tell me a riddle, right? To tell me a riddle. Okay, let's see what's going to happen. There we go. So I think I muted this, so let me unmute that. It's good to have Alexa speak out, at least for the first time. But let's see if I can play this out. I think it's playing, but my computer.
Here is the riddle for today.
Yeah, so that is the riddle for today. Yeah, so that is working perfectly fine. We've got it to work. So yeah, our first stuff is ready. So what we are going to do in here, we are going to click on this viewing 1 by 2. Click on 2 option here, and we are going to copy this JSON from here. Yeah, you will see a JSON on the side. Okay, you are going to see a JSON input here, and you are going to see a JSON output. I'm just going to copy that JSON, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open it up in my editor so that I can show it to you. You know what, I'll show the code again in a while. I think I should load it up on the editor so that everyone can do it properly. But yeah, JSON, right? So this is the JSON. So what happens is every time the user says something to the skill, the Alexa service will send you a JSON request. So you are going to get a JSON request directly to your skill backend point, and this is how the JSON request looks like. Now remember, if you come in here, you will see a request key here, and the request type is intent request, and the request intent name is riddle intent, which is what, if you recollect, in our backend code, that is what we were looking for, right? In our backend code, if you look at this function that we just changed, in fact, let me just bring this up in the code so that in the code editor, yeah, this is how the code looks like. I hope this is visible to all of you. Yeah, sorry, yeah, this is the riddle intent handler, and you can see that we are looking for the request type to be of the type intent request and the intent name to be riddle intent. So that is what we are trying out here. Yeah, and yeah, so that is what we have been trying out. Here's so what happens is this SDK method that we just are using, like alexa.getRequestType, these are SDK methods. So once you use them, you don't need to do all this parsing in your JSON library. You can kind of like use the SDK, and the SDK does all of these things for you. Okay, now what happens is the Alexa service sends you a JSON, but you need to send a JSON back to Alexa service as well, and that's how Alexa speaks out something. And for that is what will come out of this JSON output that you are seeing here. So this is how the JSON output looks like. This was the input that we got. Let's look at the output. So if you look at the output, you will see that there is a version, there is a response, output speech, and the output speech is here is the riddle for today, which again comes from this text that we set up in our code, right? So if you look at this method handler input.responsebuilder.speak, what it does is it basically just creates this JSON and sends it to the Alexa service. So you don't have to do all of making this JSON. It just does all the heavy lifting. So yeah, that's how we create an intent handler, right? And that's how we make it work. Now, if you want to be a good Alexa developer and you want to kind of build really, really great Alexa skills, I would always suggest go inside this JSON, understand all this JSON up, in a really good way. This is where the secret to becoming a good Alexa developer lies, in the JSON inputs and outputs. Anyways, that is done, but now we also learned about another way to open the skill, and the way to do that is by doing something like you saying something like Alexa open riddle me today, right? And then give me today's riddle. So what will happen is some of the users, they might say something like ask riddle me today to tell me a riddle, but some people might just say Alexa open riddle me today. Okay, how do you handle something like that? So let's try that out. So I'm just going to say open riddle me today. So
Welcome. You can say hello or help. Which would you like to try?
So I just said open riddle me today, and it said welcome, you can say hello or help. But now let's see what's happening there. As usual, I'm going to look at the JSON that I got from here. Let's just copy that JSON here. Let's go into here and let's try and put this JSON here. Now, if you look at this, the request type has changed. Earlier, the request type was intent request. Now, the request type is launch request, right? So we are now looking at launch request as a way to handle this. So we need to handle that in our code. Let's look into our code and let's see if there's a launch request handler. And pretty much, yes, there is. On line number 6, there is a launch request handler, and it does handle request type of launch request. And the speak output says something like welcome. You can say hello or help. Which would you like to try? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say something like, what do we say? Okay. I think for that, let me just open up what we built yesterday. I think we built the situational design. I'm just going to quickly bring that up here. So yesterday we said welcome to we were talking about intro music, then we were talking about welcome to riddle me today. I'll give you a riddle every day and 3 chances to answer it. The less chances you take, the more points you win. All your points counts towards your leaderboard. Are you ready for today's riddle? So this is what Alexa is going to say when you say open riddle me today, right? So what I'm going to do here is open the code and say welcome to riddle me today. I am going to ask you a riddle every day and 3 chances to answer it correctly. 3 chances to answer it correctly, right? And the less chances you take, the more points you win. Yeah. Now all your points count towards our weekly leaderboard. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to so this is my output speech. What I'm going to do is create a new variable which I'm going to call as the prompt, and the prompt is going to be something like, are you ready for today's riddle? Are you ready for today's riddle, right? So I just let me put a backslash here and then have Alexa ask that question, right? So that is my going to be my output. So what I'm going to do here is let's create a new variable. I'm going to call this as the speech output, and I'm going to say speak output plus prompt. Okay, so what I've done is I've defined both of them differently. I've put the question in a different way and the response in a different way, and you will see why pretty soon. And what I'm going to do is when I say Alexa should speak it out, so there is an option called as speak, which means Alexa speaks it out for the first time, right? So what I'm going to do here is take the speech output variable and put that into the speech output, into the speak option. So what's going to happen is that is what Alexa will speak it out, right? But now on the device, what happens is sometimes users might not answer anything, or users may not have time to answer it, right? And sometimes we are expecting the user to say something, and that's when we'll use a method called as reprompt. So keep in mind this, if we want the user to say something back and we want to capture that, we need to use the reprompt method, right? So the reprompt method keeps the mic open so that the users can speak. Okay, but now if the user did not pick up properly, if the user's response was not picked up properly, Alexa will repeat it again, right? So it will reprompt the user, in which case we don't want to say the same thing again. We don't want the user to welcome to riddle me today. We don't want Alexa to say that twice. We want to say the next time, hey, are you ready for today's riddle? So in that case, what I will do is I'll just change this to prompt. So this is a best practice, folks, to keep in mind. The first time, have a very detailed output, but the next time kind of don't have to ask the same thing again. Just go with the bare minimum question that needs to be added. Okay, and you will be getting access to all of this code, so don't worry about the code. We will be sharing this code with all of you. I'm going to just copy this code and paste it back into the backend code. I'm going to click on save. and then deploy. Right. So I think the deployment is successful so far. So let's just test out the skill. Okay. Let's open it again. I kind of have a habit of reloading this every time. You don't need to do that. It's just an habit that I have I just do that out of habit. You don't need to reload it. So I'm just going to say open riddle me today.
Welcome to Riddle Me Today. I am going to ask you a riddle every day, and 3 chances to answer it correctly. The less chances you take, the more points you win. All your points count towards our weekly leaderboard. Are you ready for today's riddle?
Right, so that worked out good. I think one thing that we missed here was at the end, Alexa was just saying dot. So I think let's just space it out and see what happens. Just put in a space here. So maybe that should help it out. But yeah, hope everyone is clear at this point. We are just putting in the text for the response, right? So that's pretty much what we are doing. Now the user will say something like yes. Okay, so if the user says something like yes,
Here is the riddle for today.
Right, so what is going to happen is in most cases it's not going to work, or it's going to go to the wrong intent for the time being, right? It's going to something called as it's going to the riddle me intent, but we are going to kind of make sure that this happens all the time. So let's go back to our build console here. And once we go back to the build console, there's this option here where we can create an intent, because people can say something like yes, sure, go ahead, stuff like that, and we want to make sure that all of them go to the riddle and give us the riddle, right? So what I'm going to do is click on this add intent option here and use an existing intent from Alexa's built-in library. Let's search for something called as yes intent. You'll find this amazon.yes intent, and this is a built-in library that Amazon has already provided to developers. You just need to add it, and what it does basically is that it has all the variations of yes, sure, and all those things already built into the yes intent. So you need to not worry about feeding utterances. All of this is handled by default. Okay, so I'm just going to click on save model here and click on build model option here. So let's so that save model is happening and the build model is happening. So in the meanwhile, let's come back to the code, and what we are going to do now is come back to the code here, and let's handle the yes intent handler as well. Now we don't need to create a new intent handler. It's not like for every intent you need to create a new intent handler. You can make one handler handle both of those things, right? So what I'm going to do here is, remember this riddle intent handler. This is what is going to give us the riddle for today, right? So what we are going to do here is we're just going to return this thing, put all of this into a bracket, and put an OR condition here. And in this OR condition, what we'll do here is let's just copy this again, this entire intent request, and let's just paste it. And here the type is still going to be intent request, right? The type is still going to be intent request, but the intent name is going to be Amazon.yes intent, right? So that is what we need to make sure we are handling here properly. Now even sometimes like you might ask, hey, you said yes and you went into the riddle intent, right? So why are we writing this? Why did we have to create a new intent and all those things? The reason is sometimes Alexa works on confidence on what it thought it heard. So sometimes it will think that yes means, sometimes the matching is not that proper, and sometimes it's very accurate. So we just want to make sure that, we want all of that to be handled properly. And that's why we kind of put all of that effort into creating a new intent. So anyways, we've copied this. Let's paste it here. I'll come into the code. The build is successful. What if the user says no? That is also something that we can handle. We can just create another intent called as there is a no intent as well. You can handle that and create a new intent handler and maybe say something like, okay, what else do you need to do? Do you want to leave for today? Or you can ask some other questions that you want to do. Okay, so let me just save and deploy it. And this is a question that I keep getting people asking if they can deploy COVID-19 skills. Like Jeff just mentioned, we do not allow people to, developers to publish COVID related skills because the data accuracy cannot be trusted or the data can be changed. So we have an official source, and so that's the reason why we don't at this point allow people to publish COVID skills. Okay, so far so good. What we have been doing so far is we have a riddle intent handler, right, and an yes intent. Let's test it out. I'm going to say open riddle me today, and
Welcome to Riddle Me Today. I'm going to ask you a riddle every day, and 3 chances to answer it correctly. The less chances you take, the more points you win. All your points count towards our weekly leaderboard. Are you ready for today's riddle?
yes, let's say yes. And you'll also notice that
Here is the riddle for today.
right, so when I said yes, let's come and see what happened this time. Yes, if you look at this request in here, and I hope all of you can see that, what's happening in here is Amazon.yes intent is being triggered. Earlier, riddle intent was getting triggered. So now we are pretty much sure that whenever the user says yes, they are going to go into something called as the yes intent riddle, right? So that is something that the users are going to go into, right? And we have handled it properly by handling this in this code here. I'm just going to pause there for a minute so that all of you can get a glimpse of this code. So this is a code that we have done so far. Just take a couple of seconds and just go through this. And if you have any queries, feel free to ask them. And I'll just take a small breather so that we can get started again. Okay, so let's get started now. Okay, now what we need to do is every time someone, so this is the plan that I had for the skill. What this skill is going to do is this skill is going to give you, the skill is going to give you a puzzle every day. So my plan is to have like 365 puzzles. That is the number of days in a year. And if you come on the 4th day of the year, that is the 4th January, you will get the 4th puzzle from the array, and then so on, so forth, right? So that is something that I had in mind. But while doing that, I'm also going to teach you how we can make sure that we are not only building the skill for us, for one language, but for multiple languages as well, right? So this is something that we have done just right now for one language. Let's try and do this for multiple languages, right? So for that, what I'm going to do here is go back to the build tab in here. And then click on this drop down here, English IN, click on language settings option. And inside the language settings option, what I'm going to do here is there's an option called as add new language. I'm going to click on that, and let's add Hindi IN for this. For the moment, you can add all the other English as well, that's perfectly fine. And then once you've added Hindi, just click on save option and then click on the build option again, right? Now once you do that, you are going to see Hindi option in here as well, right? Now look at this, the English option has riddle intent, has Amazon.yes intent, but when you go to the Hindi intent, you will see that none of those intents are available, right? So you need to create them in here again, okay? But we are not going to create them manually. What we are going to do here is go back to the English IN, okay? And out here, there is an option called as JSON editor. If you click on that JSON editor, all of this interaction model is available to you in the form of a JSON. At the end of the day, it's just a JSON file, right? So if you change it here, it will start reflecting here. If you change it here, it will start reflecting here. So I'm just going to copy this as it is and then come to the Hindi part of this. Go to the JSON editor part, and here let me just paste this here, okay? But now keep in mind, we are building it for a totally different language. If you are doing it for English UK, you don't need to change it, but because you are doing it for Hindi, there are certain rules for how to do this in Hindi. So what we are going to do is let me just copy this and come back, and what I'm going to do here is open this in a new tab, and here the invocation name, I'm going to change this. In fact, you know what, I don't need to do that on the browser. I can do that on the browser, sorry. Just come in here, click on save model, and you will see that the riddle intent is here, the yes intent is here, right? And the invocation name is here as well. So let's click on the invocation name. Now for Hindi, we don't want riddle me today. We can do something like, you know, change the language here. Now I need to you know, type it here in Devanagari. So for the Devanagari script, let me just quickly check if I can add that. I think I can add it via keyboard. But for you, you can just go online and you can search for any Hindi typing websites and maybe get it from there. There are a lot of them, so you can just take it from there, right? I don't want Devanagari, I want in Hindi, there is a Hindi A to A. You don't need to worry about where I'm getting this keyboard from. Don't worry at all about this. You can go online and just search for, you know, just search for Hindi typing, okay? Yeah, so I'm going to call this skill as Paheli Ka Khel, right? So this is the name of my skill. It's going to be called Paheli Ka Khel, okay? Now the name of my intent is going to be the same. I'm not going to change the intent name. It's going to be still be the same. It's going to be riddle intent, but I'm not going to say, a user who is using the Hindi skill, they are not going to say bring a riddle, tell me a riddle. They are going to speak in Hindi, right? So how do you think people are going to say that in Hindi? I would like to hear some of those messages. You can post that in the chat. One thing that I can hear is one thing that comes on my mind is Paheli Sunao, right? Paheli Sunao, Paheli Batao, right? Paheli Batao, okay? You know, stuff like that. And then I'll just make sure I'm saving this model, okay? Now once I have saved this model, what I need to do here is let me just come back to ADC, right? So that's all about on the front end. On the front end, what we did was, I'm just going to repeat that again in case you didn't catch that. We went to this option, clicked on language settings, we went to this page, we added a new language, we came back to the build option, we copied the interaction model from the JSON editor here in the English option, went into Hindi, and we changed the interaction you know, model from the JSON editor. We updated all these values, right? So this is for Paheli Ka Khel, okay? That's all we did, and we updated the utterances, okay? Now the front end is dealt with. Now we need to take care of the back end, right? So we'll go into the back end. Let's go into the code option. Now we need to make sure that when a user comes in from the English version of the skill, they are handled properly. But when they come in from the English version of the skill, sorry, Hindi version of the skill, they should get a different, you know, response. It should be in, say for example, Hindi, right? So what we are going to do here is on the lambda. So what we are going to do here is we are going to use something called as localization, or rather internationalization, which is I18N. You can use any I18 packages, and we have a lot of blog posts written on the topic on how to deal with this, how to build this, right? But I'm going to create a very simple method today, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that, right? Let's come in here. Inside this lambda folder, let's create a file. I'm going to call this as the skill data.js file. Okay. And because I'm running a bit short on time, I think I might just have a backup code here somewhere, which I can maybe just pull that out, or actually give me a minute, guys. Yeah. So what I'll do in here is I'm going to create a module so that I make this exportable. And what I'll do here is module.exports, put it in this, right? And we have right now two languages. One is ENIN and one is Hindi, which is HIIN. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do ENIN, right? So this is how it looks like, and this is how I'll just create a JSON object and just have arrays in here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this message. So I want to make sure when the user is speaking and when Alexa speaks back, this response that is going to come in here, that should be from the skill data file, right? So that it will automatically check which language these folks are from. If they are from ENIN, they will show the ENIN option, or if they are from HIIN, they are going to show the HIIN version of this, right? So all I'm doing here is I've created through skill data.js file two values in here, ENIN and HIIN, and out here I'm going to create a variable, or rather an array, which says welcome_message is, and let's see what the welcome message is going to be. So this is the welcome message. Let's copy this, let's come back here and let's put in here, right? And did I capture that rightly? Yeah, I did. I think I didn't. Okay, so that's all I did here. Yeah, there seems to be some error here. What did I do? Unterminated string constant. What did I do wrong here? Well, let me actually pull this up quickly in my editor, and if you can see the error, just let me know what error I'm making here, because I think I'm not entirely sure what mistake I'm making here, and maybe I'll just have to refer to my code. What did I miss here? Welcome message. Yeah, welcome to Riddle Me today. Did I leave? Yeah, I think there's an extra single string that was there, that was not closed there properly. So this is how it looks like. Don't worry about the code. Like I said, I'll be sharing this code with you all, so don't worry about it. So now this is a welcome message. I need to have a welcome message for Hindi HIIN as well. Yeah, and what we are going to do here is what's the Hindi skill called as? The Hindi skill is called Paheli Ka Khel, right? So what we are going to do here is let's open this up, and let's the editor may not be the right thing to do it in here. So Paheli Ka Khel में आपका स्वागत है, right? And I'm not going to worry too much about putting in the entire text at this point, but yeah, let's not worry about that because we don't have much time right now. So just make a question here, another question, and the question is going to be the question that we have here, right? Which says, are you ready for today's riddle? Yeah, question says, are you ready for today's riddle? Yeah, let's copy that, and oh, you know what, the browser doesn't support Unicode properly, so this is an issue that I'm going to just have it once. I'll make sure that I have all the values ready. So here's the welcome message. The question is, क्या आप खेलने के लिए तैयार हैं? I'd love it if we have it in Amitabh Bachchan's voice, but we'll run into copyright issues. क्या आप खेलने के लिए तैयार हैं? Okay, so very simple thing. Let me just reiterate what we did here. We just created a new file. The name of this file is skilldata.js. I'm going to put in module.export and just make it as an exportable module so that I can use it within my code. Yeah, and then just make sure I'll click this save and deploy it. Right. Now let's access this in our code. Okay, what I'm going to do here is going to say, let me actually turn that out. I just hope we can do that for today. Skill data is equal to require /skilldata.js. Right, so that's what we are doing here. Okay, we are going to do here require skill data. In fact, I think I can just do a skill data.js as well. It's perfectly fine. That should work as well. Okay, so now that we have included that file here, let's write a small function which will basically tell us that, hey, this is what locale this user is from, right? So what we are going to do here is, let me just write a function here, and in fact I can write this function here so that you can just see what I'm writing in here. So I'm going to write a function here which says function get localized data and pass in the locale to the user. Okay, and then what will happen is we are going to get the locale option. Okay, we've got some 15 minutes more, so I think we should be able to finish this. But what we are going to do is we are going to call a function. We made a function called as get localized data, and we are passing the locale variable to it. So let's say we pass HIIN to it, or we pass ENIN to it. It is going to send us the skill data, which is this skill data, right? Skill data is equal to require skill data.js. It will return either the ENIN version or the HIIN version, right? So this is a translation module kind of thing that we are building in here. And out here, what we will do here is kind of do something like constant data is equal to get localized data. And here, if you look back into the developer console, in fact, if we now test it out, let's you can see Hindi and IN both, Hindi and English option both. I'm just going to go with English option again. Now there will be a new key in the JSON request. Let's open the JSON request and see what's going to happen here.
Welcome to Riddle Me today. I'm going to...
Yeah. If you look at in here, there is a locale key which has ENIN option. Right? For Hindi, this will be HIIN. And both of that is in our code. Right? It's here in ENIN and HIIN. So let's come back here. What we are going to do here is say handler input dot request envelope dot request dot locale. So basically what we are doing here is going inside this request and the locale and getting the ENIN, and then we are passing it to the get localized data function, which will send us this value. Okay, now yeah, just making sure that we have the skill data is equal to require skill data.js. Did I capture that right? I think I missed a, yeah, I think I missed this in here, data.js, and save it. Okay, so this is skill data here. Skill data is equal to require skill data.js. Now, once we are done with that, I think what we are going to do here is come here and let's take these two values in here and let's put them at the bottom. Okay, now we don't need to bring this from here. Okay, we need to remove this because this is going to come in from our skill data.js file. Right now, this response is going to come from the response file. So if it is Hindi, it's going to send us the Hindi option. If it is English, it's going to send in the English option, right? So we want to make sure that the users get the correct value. Okay, so that is something that we need to keep in mind. Okay, so now what we'll do here is we'll do here data of welcome underscore message plus what was that name, question, right? Data of question. Well, what happened? What just happened? Okay, data of question. Yeah, that is going to be a speak output. Okay, I'm going to remove this speak output from here, and let's just remove this as well. This would be data of just question, right? So let's come in here inside the code, make it speak output and prompt. So I hope this works. I've not tested it, so I hope it works, but I don't see a reason as to why this should not work. But in case it doesn't work, let me just quickly put in console.log data. Okay, just to see what is the data that we are getting in back from the console, right? Okay, so I hope everyone understood this. Skill data requires a file called as skilldata.js, and skilldata.js is then passed through this get localized data function, which will, depending on the user's language, HIIN or ENIN, going to send that array back and going to put that value inside this data variable. And then we say data of welcome message plus data of question. So if it's a Hindi user, we get the Hindi response. If it's the English user, we get the English response. As simple as that. I hope this works. Okay, so let's save this and let's deploy this. Okay, let's test it out. Okay, let's try here open riddle me today. I hope it works. Hey, there we go. So that is working, right? So that works because we are in English IN. Let's reload this page and let's actually try this in Hindi. Okay, and Hindi, what we are going to do here is come in here and say पहेली का खेल शुरू करो. Right, so now it's working as well, right? Okay. You know, that is weird because we didn't have any audio. So it looks like at this point, it's actually not, it's bringing in some other skill, which, or maybe it might be our skill as well. No, so I think this sometimes happens where if you take an invocation name and you have already enabled, so I already have a skill called as Paheli Ka Khel. So that's the reason why this is not working. But let's try that quickly. Maybe I'll just go and try changing my invocation name. So what was happening is, like you said, if I change the if I said paheli ka khel shuru karo, it was not working properly. So let me just change this to aaj ki paheli. Okay, let's hope. So why this happened is because there's another skill with the same invocation name and I have enabled it. If I did not enable it, this would not have been an issue. But because I enabled it, sometimes there's just a clash. Or it might be also the case that I have already built a skill like this before and I was just trying it out, and maybe sometimes I just need to refresh my developer portal, so that way it just works perfectly fine. Right, so let's hope this works out fine. Yeah, I muted it earlier, so let's just see if training model. Yeah, training the model. Okay, let's go and test it out. I hope this works, guys. आज की पहेली शुरू करो. No, I think I'm running into an issue with the name here. Let's just try one more thing here. But this should be working. But the reason why this is not working is Alexa is just misunderstanding our request. Maybe let's try it on my computer. Computer, आज की पहेली शुरू करो.
पहेली का खेल में आपका स्वागत है. क्या आप खेलने के लिए तैयार हैं?
So you can just see when I try it on my device, it's just working perfectly fine.
For today.
Yeah. Stop. So let me just try it out on my device because it's working in my device. So I'm just going to say, computer, पहेली का खेल शुरू करो.
पहेली के खेल में आपका स्वागत है. मैं आपको एक पहेली सुनाऊंगी और आपको बता.
Exit. It looks like I'm kind of getting into some issues with this. This always gives me a hard time, folks. And if you get an issue like this, you know what to do now. Just try and change your invocation name so that it gets invoked. Computer, आज की पहेली शुरू करो.
पहेली का खेल में आपका स्वागत है. क्या आप खेलने के लिए तैयार हैं?
Stop. So you can see I was actually giving the wrong name. So I was saying पहेली का खेल शुरू करो, whereas my skill name was आज की पहेली. But you can see that पहेली का खेल में आपका स्वागत है is what Alexa did say, right? And just to prove to you that I'm not doing that my code is actually working, let me just quickly change this to something like पहेली का खेल में आपका स्वागत है or something like, say, धन्यवाद. Okay, धन्यवाद. Okay, now let's just paste this, save it, and deploy it, and let's see if that works. कंप्यूटर, आज की पहेली शुरू करो.
पहेली का खेल में आपका स्वागत है और धन्यवाद. क्या आप खेलने के लिए तैयार हैं?
Stop. So there you see, that is working, right? So hey, we managed to get that done, folks. So yay, that is really cool, right? So let me just quickly recap what we did today. Okay, so that we just wrap it up right now. We created a new skill which was called as build, and we used Alexa hosted. We changed the invocation names of the skill. We know how to change the invocation name. We created a new intent called as riddle intent. We added some utterances here. And we also added some another intent called as the Amazon yes intent, so that whenever people kind of say something to the skill, say yes to the skill, it's handled properly. Afterwards, in our code today, and this was the code for riddle intent handler. This is how it looks like. We handled the intent request and riddle intent, and we also handled intent request and the yes intent, which is basically what it says is here is the riddle for today. Now once we did that and we tested out our skill, this was working perfectly fine. And we also saw the difference between saying something like open riddle me today and ask riddle me today to give me today's riddle. We saw the difference between both of them. Basically, open riddle is going to send you a request called as launch request, and just saying something like ask riddle me today to give me a riddle is going to call the intent directly, right? So that's something that we learned. Afterwards, we also learned a bit about localization. We created a new file called as skilldata.js, and that code is here. This is how it looks like. Let me just paste it here so that, and I'll be sharing all these links inside the Slack channel, so make sure you are a part of the Slack channel there. And we just created a skilldata.js file. We put in two locales there, ENIN and HIIN, and welcome message and questions we just put in there in here. And then once we did that, we imported that here using skill data is equal to require skill data.js. Then we created a function called as get localized data, and it requires we passed whatever was the user's locale. So if the user, like for example in this example, where did that go? Okay, so from the user's JSON you will get if the user is from the Hindi locale or the English locale, and based on that you are going to get the data file, and then we just change the value. So this is called as localization, and this is something that we need to do so that users from different language get the proper response there. So I'm going to leave this code as it is there so that you can just check out. I think in an hour from now there is another show called as Between Two Devs. I think maybe in 15 minutes or so. So I'm just going to wrap this up. We've just jumped over our time a slight bit, but I hope you learned something really cool today. Just a couple of things that I need to share with you. Let me just actually, before I go for today, let me come back here, and this is something that is going to help me and the entire team, guys. So the link that I just shared, which is alexa.design/sc feedback, please go in there and give us feedback about today's session. What you liked in this session, what can be improved, so that tomorrow when we come in, we look at these suggestions seriously and take and improve them in the next session, right? So that's what we learned today. Like I said, I see a lot of people asking for code. All the links, all of this is going to be added in the Slack channel. So just come and join us in the Slack channel, and I'll be sharing that code with all of you, and you can get started with testing this out. Before I go, just one thing that I need all of you to do. This is a riddle skill. So if on the Slack channel, let me actually, while I'm here, I hope I'm just not taking a lot of time. On the Slack channel, what I want you to do is post your riddles. So this is a skill that needs riddles, and I see there are around 221 of you right now. If you can post your riddles, I've just created a skill called I've created a thread here called as post your riddles. Just come in here and click on the thread option, share your riddles here, folks. So find some good riddles for me from the internet and post it in the Slack channel, right? And we can take it from there. But for now, I think I'm almost running out of time here, so I need to wrap this up. As usual, don't forget to give all of us a follow. A shout out to Jeff Blankenberg and JB Nunn, who who are hanging out earlier today and helping me out with this. That's it for today. I hope that was helpful. Don't forget to give the feedback, and see you guys tomorrow, same time, 6 o'clock IST. See you all again. Bye bye.